So, welcome to today's discussion because I realize that uh, I have to take you through also some theoretical part of your work so that you understand what are you implementing in the practical side. Because first of all, you need to know that theoretical aspect also for purposes of examinations and assessments that are available, and also to be able to execute some of the questions that you have at hand. So for us to do that, as you also do the practical implementation of what we are discussing now, the theoretical aspect, it now becomes so easier for you to implement such activities. Uh, First things first, because you can't just build an app without knowing what is this app made up of, right? So you need to know the aspects or the specs of such uh, an event or such a system so that you are in a good position to execute what is needed. That gives me the space or the ability to be able to explain to you or to discuss with you several sections of Android development. And I think I'd shared with you this material, but I have to explain them so that you are in a better position to understand the system well. So we are going to look at all this within the specific time that we have. If the remaining will be there, then we shall be able to proceed in the next session. Uh, I want us to look at what is layouts. And when talking about layouts, we have to talk about how the systems arrange themselves within the screen. How are the systems or how are your components arranged in the system? Are they scattered or which format are you grouping them? How are they grouped within the systems and so on? So there are several things that you need to know, types of layouts, so that you can be able to unpack them and know how they are. Uh, just to check on that within the layout space. So if it's not within here, I'll be able to explain to you in what I have shared with you. But I know that I had given you two type of content. One that explains about the how it looks in Java, and the other one is now how it looks in Kotlin. So I say that Kotlin is the new advanced. So we are shifting from Java now to Kotlin for us to have moving with the current market, because you understand that you need to be prepared also to be fit in the market, right? So that you don't just remain in the old systems. Now, for us to have that, then we need to understand about the layouts in terms of the constraints or types of layouts that are available. So we know we have relatives, we have constraints layouts, we have linear layouts, and so on. So which one is used where, and how are they being used to recycle viewers, and how does this happens? So when talking about layouts in Android, then we need to know how are they applied to help us design and come up with our systems. Android devices come with many different forms, and this comes with the are you developing applications for smartwatches? Are they for tablets? Are they for smart cars? Or are they for what factor? Then, with this, then it means that the amount of pixels differ because the graphics that is supported by a mobile phone, a smart one, which is of Android, let's say Android 11 and above, is totally different with the one that Android 5, Android 4 is supporting. You might find that the graphic that works with Android 11 and above cannot work well with the mobile phone or a TV of a small version. For instance, there are some TVs that when you play a video that is of like pixels, like how much, like the highest, let's say it's for 80, you find that with for 80, the small TVs work very well, that you are watching that video and it is of high graphics, so it looks so clear, it looks so nice. For instance, if you go to the villages and then you find these TVs being offered by small organizations such as the solar organizations, uh, such as which ones do you have? Uh, do you come from regions where some devices are being offered by solar? Uh, it might be a privilege for you. Maybe you are somehow the parents are good, they are rich a bit, but there are some who come from very remote areas that the only TVs that they have are the ones that have been offered by the solar companies, such as Daylight. Any other ones? Mm. Let's have an interactive session. Mm? Or you people don't know that those things exist? Am I muted? Or I'm speaking to humans? Uh, some of you or a few of you also have some phones that are offered by those institutions. So you find somebody telling you that my phone is locked, cannot be able to proceed. Mm. Those ones who are buying like sometimes phones that are called lipa mdogo mdogo and so on. So all these are tech companies, mm, Moco or whatever things. So pixels differ, and these pixels per inch are being packed into a device screen. So that means that the level of the screen, whether it is which type of a screen are you using. See, we have LG, we have LED, we have QLED, we have so many of them. And now the QLED is now the quantum, because now we are moving now to quantum technology, which now has the AI modifications and ability. And that's why you have televisions that are now QLED and those kind of things. So, but you'll find that we have those ones who are still using the old version. Not They have not shifted to the QLED types. So all these are, they determine the amount of pixels, because if you find like a TCL of QLED type and you are playing a video that is at 720 pixels, you will find that that video is very low. When you watch that, you feel like this is irritating. Then you'll find that other TVs which move to 1080 and you're watching it, it's so clear. But still, when you have a QLED TV or a TCL level like 55 and above, you find that that image is totally blurred. It's not also very clear. So that means that it needs a higher pixel value. That's why now it moves now to 2160 or 2180, something like that. So with that one now, it works now very clear with that device, electronic device. So that means that pixels are very important things that we need to consider here. Developers need the ability to specify the layout dimensions. That's why when you are picking what is called the AVD, then you are picking the AVD that clearly works with your testing areas. Now, the density independent pixels, that is called the DP, because when you are writing your layouts or you are designing your screens, you always have to specify the DPs. That is the density independent pixels. Why? Because they specify the size of your layout, such as the width and the height of your views, so that you have very clear views. For instance, we come to this code, and then we are trying to get the design for the screen, for example, login or sign up. So when we go to the rest section and we go to the layout, let's say it's the login area, we'll always find something like the margin top being say 350 dp. So what does it communicate here? We are saying that what is the density pixels of the height? What height do you want your device to move to? So you always use them within your development area. You can see here margin horizontal, margin tops, and so on. Because what is the height that you want your text to move within? What is the spacing between the first text and the second text? What is the density? So that is what is the depth. Then when you say it is 0 dp as the width, that means that you have left it to define itself. What is the width that is required for that? So that is what you need to be able to note, because they are commonly in use when you are implementing such kind of dimensions. Uh, in case we look at things like activities, also you'll also be able to find there, because these are layout specifications that you need to do. And before you do this layout specification, you always have to start with the layout. So for example, this one is a layout that requires Google itself to provide you with. And what is going to use is going to use material of text field to support this text input layout. So this is the layout that defines that. But before that, on top here, you have to define the type of layout that is going to arrange all your texts, or your components, or your items, or your palettes within your app. That's why we have the constraint layout. What if you are designing something like you want your text or your values to be arranged in a horizontal space, but in a continuous consecutive way, following each other? That means linearly. Then you will have to change the layout here to what is called Android X linear layout, so that the layout defines how your components are arranged. So you'll realize that different changes will come in terms of the layout based on what are you placing inside your development. So that is what we are trying to or we are discussing here for you to understand, so that you don't just guess things, you write what you really know that exist. So that is the density independent pixels that takes the screen density into account. Then we have the Android views that are measured in density independent pixels. So how do you compute the DP that you always define there? So DP is given by the width of the pixels multiplied by 160, because you are rotating that into like 160, then divide by the screen density. Now, if you are defining yourself that let the height be 80 dp and let the width be 160 dp, then for you to get the general dp, density independent pixel, that is consumed by that screen, then you can use that formula to be able to get that. But for your case, you don't need to know about the formula, or you are not going to do that. But what you will be in need of is to be able to define the density that works with you. Now, the screen density buckets, you have this, uh, and mostly where are they defined? So, in the development space in your app, you always have a section called res folder, and in the res folder, you have the MIP map, which defines the launcher design that you are using, or the launcher XML files that you are using. You also have the mid-p now in terms of the sizes that are now different, DPI, and then you have here the web, where you can be able to attach the elements or the images that you want them to be used to be able to be defined during your app launching. You saw how we were able to modify that and change it in the app space. Let me just start my Android also, so that we can be able to compare that. Um, so all these are very, very important aspects that you need to note. So that's what we are saying, that where are they used. So you can see X DPIs, which you have seen them. All of them are within the MIP map areas, the layout section. Then we have the Android view rendering cycle. How is this Android view being rendered? First of all, you have to define the measure. Then the measure will be able to define the layout type that you are giving, and then you can now draw the element that you want. So what we see, and then how it is drawn. So this is what normally you see, but now this is how it is drawn, so that when you are designing that and adjusting the height, that's how it will be able to show you. That's why when you are doing the design in the Android space, you have the design, and then you have the code section, or the blueprint and the design section. So view with margin, and then you have view with margin and padding. So when you don't have the padding here, you can see that there is no, this gap does not exist in this space, here. Why? Because here you have done without the margin, but here you've done with the margin plus the padding. Padding, we say, it is now the distance or the thickness of how you want your borders to look like, okay? Or the spacing between your text from one text to another is also padding. So you can define text padding, and then you can define the margin paddings and so on. Constraint layouts. When you are dealing with constraint layouts, we are starting with deeply nested layouts that are costly. Mostly you use these ones to define what are called the view groups that require more computations. Number one is views may be measured multiple times, and they can cause UI slowdown and lack of responsiveness. So you use the view groups that are really responsive and working with your device. You don't just choose any. So use constraint layouts to avoid some of these issues. That's why mostly we use constraint layout at the beginning of our apps. When you look at the app like this one, and you come to the first layout here, let's say activity main, activity login, you always start with, so once we do that, then we can be able to come here and change the code. So you can see here the constraint layout. That is what we are speaking about, this one, constraint layout. So you always start with this to ensure that you solve issues with all those other areas that we get the problems. So that is what you needed to note about that. The other issue is that now, when do you use all this? Because we have different types of layouts that you need to be able to consume them all. Position and size views within the using set of constraints and so on. So they are very important. What is a constraint? A constraint, we always say, is just a restriction or a limitation on the properties of a view. The, the limitations or the restrictions that you have is what we talk about that. So a restriction or a limitation on the properties of a view, that is the layout attempts to respect. So mostly is either the distance between the text or the elements that you have. So most of them must be met. Like if you define that let the constraint be 30 or 60, then is it upwards, downwards, left, or right? Then it has to be defined and to be well respected. Then we have relative positioning constraints. Now, can you set up a constraint relative to the parent container? And how is it done? So layout constraints such as the source constraints to target the constraint values is always defined. So you can define them in terms of the height or in terms of the width. And then, so mostly we use the constraints as either the parent. So when you say that let it be a parent, it means that constraint top, constraint left, that to meet the parent, it means that if you have assigned it a specific location, like this is the length and the width, then you want your text to fit that box so that it is not scattered. So it fits it completely. That's why we are saying it's a restricted position, that it must fit there. So when you say that let it meet the parent, then it means that it should be able to fit the entire space that has been given. Then we have the second one, which is always wrap text. That means that it's making the text to adjust itself, even if it was so big, but it can adjust itself to fit the location or the space that it has been assigned. So mostly in every app, you will have those two defined. For example, here, you have this one here, match parent, match parents, constraint width and constraint height. But when you're developing and maybe you want to define them differently, then you will have to define them correctly to meet what you want. For instance, here, we are saying that now for the entire spacing first, that let this background fit the width and the height. Why? Because we are telling that the screen of the login here or the signing up page must fit the screen of your device. Why? Because it helps to define your in web development. We are talking about screen responsiveness, that you want your app to fit on the screen so that it should not be halfway, it should not be on the left or on the right. You want everything that you have defined in your app to fit the screen entirely complete. So that is what we define there when you say that you want to match your layout width and the height, especially on the main page, that it has to meet there. Then you also want to consume some elements from the app and the tools. These ones are defined within the SDK. Remember, that's why you had those files being installed. So if they are not installed, then you will lack all this being defined. Then you come here now to define a text field that you want to be used. So a text field, you will need to define its ID. You will need to define the style that it has to pick. And then you will need to define the height and the width. And now you can now be able now to define differently the margins on top and on the ground and horizontally. How should it behave? So that's then before you now give the text colors and anything that you wanted it to have. So all these are constraints that you are just defining. So you are giving some restrictions that it should not go beyond this. You should have these specific sizes. Or if you are fitting a text field or a text area or a button, you want a button maybe to be halfway and to be located at the center. So you have to define it in terms of the constraints. Okay. So you define the constraint top, down, bottom, top, bottom, on the start and on the end, so that makes it to be at the center well, or fit the position that you want it to be. So those are the things that you need to understand within that space. The other thing that we want to talk about now here, so that because all these things are being implemented in the coding space, so you need to understand them. So when you say top, what does it mean? Is above, bottom is below, and then baseline is now within a specified height that you have given it, so that you can be able to define what is the responsive location of your text. Then we have these ones here. You talk about the left, right, end, and the start. So when you're defining all of them, you must define them all to be able to give your text, your button, or any element that you are using within your app to fit into the space that you have given it. Now, for instance, here, you have Android layout width match parent, and then height match parent. What does it mean? That match the specific location or space that we have assigned to you. Then you will now have now to define also now in the button section, because this one defines the widget of the screen, and then the second one now will have to be defining here. You'll have now to define the height from the top there to the bottom. Where do you want to locate your text or your label? So here, when you say match the parent, match the parent, match the parent, it means that you want it to fit based on the location that you have assigned it, and let it auto fit. So automatically fit itself to what you want. Then we have this one here. So you can edit this. You can edit this within the editor section, and that is how you can be able to do it, as I demonstrate in this animated text section. So you see, that's what you can be able to do. You can adjust them by pulling them either to the left, to the right, and whatever. So what I simply mean is what I simply mean in that area is that if at all, let me close these others. For instance, this one here, we are saying that you can fit this, you can align this in this area that you want. Where do you want this to fit? Because you have said meet the parent location, then it has to be changed that way. But what if I want to reduce this area here? So you can be able either to double click this way and then be able, or shift it towards that direction to fit there, and then you can also pull this one here up to the end here, so that you are telling this text to be at the center. This one you can pull it there, and then this one here you can pull it there, so that you tell it that now meet the parent location. But you can use this blueprint area here to adjust it. You can be able to click the properties section here, and then you can now come here and now say that I don't want this part here to fit the parent. Are you seeing there that I don't want it to fit the parent? Like now, if I come back to this, let's say I want to define it with this, so that where does that text field go to? Let's say that you want it to be somehow within a specific location or space. Let's say maybe you want margin top to be at 350. So you can be able just to come here and then say this is margin top margin. You see it when you hover here, it gives you the name top margin. So I can say that I want it to be 350, so that I remove that, so that this one is 350. So when I do this, or this one we have removed it, then we assign it here, and then we say that we want it to be 350, like that. Wait a bit. So I've removed the top, but if I want to return it, you come here and then you pull it back until the top here, and now you can see it has come back. Then you can now define it and now give it any value that you want. So if you say 20, then that's how it will be able to move. If you say 350, that is how it will be, so that the top here becomes too big, too high. What if we say that now I want this text to be the top 10, so that it moves upwards, so that it's on top there? So that's how you can be able to define it. Then you can define maybe bottom here to be at around uh, maybe just 250. You see, when you do that, how it has shifted there. So that's how that. So you can adjust yourself which position do you want this element to shift to, like that. So you can adjust the height, you can adjust the positioning. Where do you want it to be? Is it 0 0? That means that it's meeting the parent. But what if you say that I want here to be 20, and also here, you see, when you say to be 20, the other side and this side is 0, then this text will be shifting towards this direction because you've added 20 to be on the other margin. Then what if we say that now let it be 2020? Then it means that it has to be at the center. So when I do this, then you can see now it readjusts itself into the position that now we want. What if we say that now on top, let us reduce on top to be 8, like that? So you can see it will have to shift to the top position. Let's say that I want it to be 4. So this text needs to shift towards the top that you have reduced it to be that. So down here we have said to be 250, and you can see here it reads for you. It's 250. 250. Here is 20. Here is 20. Here is 4. So it has shifted to that, and you can easily shift it maybe up to here, and you can still adjust it to where you want it to be. So once you do this now, and then you check the code, let me close the attributes here, then we come here to the code here, we check it. You can see these values are now changing here. So you can see what we were defining is what is now coming here. So you said top 20 down here to be that, and now here you are saying let it be text size to be that, and so on. So that is how this is being done. So the text sizes does not use the DP. Instead, it uses the SP. What if you use the SP? So that one is now okay. Because if you use the DP, it's not about the density pixels. So for text sizes, you are using the SP. So do you understand what's the SP? So all that is what we are looking at here. And now you can be able to see our text is here. And when you look at the design, then that is how it looks like. That now this is now the top. And now you can even be able now to change that so that now it becomes like now your header. So what is the header? The header is sign up. You can say sign up section. Then when we come here, now we can now be able now to know that that is the sign up text area. So if it's a logo, you want to put here an image. So you can use here an image viewer. You come here to the palette, you come here to the palette, click here, and then you can look for image view, because this is what will be displaying here, the logo of the image, so you can attach it. So all that is what we would wish to talk about, this layout screens and so on. So let's continue to understand that in that dimension, so that now you know what are you implementing in the text. So if given any code and then you are asked to adjust, you can easily adjust that code to fit what you want to be specific, so that you are good and well located in your development. Let's proceed with that, so that we can be able to now look at that. So all this I've tried to show you. So you have fixed values, you have wrapped content, and then you have match constraints. Then we have talked about start, end, top, and bottom, and how they are playing within your design of your code section. So all this you have seen them. I'll not be able to repeat that so much because you have seen them. Chains. So what do chains do for you? Chains in the development space or the design space allows you to position your views in a relation to each other, so that you can be able to pack them together, but they don't overlap each other. They are well linked together. So you can be linked horizontally or vertically. Are they linearly? Are they vertically? Are they relatively? Are they constrained layout space? So you provide much of the linear layout functionalities on them. For instance, we talked about you want to arrange like the grid sections, like in the mobile apps that deal with money. You see? So all that is much important. So you create the chain in the layout edit, and these are the chains that you have seen. So you are trying to pull one up, one down. So you pull them within that locality to ensure that they fit the right position. Because if you don't understand these layout issues, then you cannot be able to come up with any good design. You'll be having your designs overlapping each other, and people will be wondering, I can't see this field well. So all this has to be defined well. So you can right click and then you select the chains that you want, and then you can be able to link it to one another. Then you can create horizontal or vertical chains, okay, depending on what are you doing. So you can have a spread chain, spread inside chain, weighted chains, and the packed chains within that. So on constraints layout, we also have what are called guidelines. So let your position multiply views relative to a single guide. It can be vertical or horizontal, and you need to be able to note that. So you can easily also arrange them so well to fit all the locality or the location that you want. For example, you want to achieve this kind of a design. So that you have the top part, then you have your passport. For example, maybe this is a, a section to update your profile. So you have your detailed name on top, and then you have your image, and then you have other sections here, maybe your full name, your phone number, your other things, email, and so on, your personal details. Maybe this is a biodata section, or so that's how you can be able to do that. So you can start with the constraint, then you define the orientation to be vertical. So when you define the orientation to be vertical, that means that your texts are going to be moving from top down, not from left to right. So that's why you see here, it's defined vertical. And then you can have your text constraints. So you can use what is called the start guidelines to be able to stand for everything. and it can suit out all that. So instead of creating begin, end, and percent, you can just have the constraint start to end of. Then you put there the guideline that you have already defined. Sorry. Grouping, groups. So when you're using groups, what do they do? When you look at the animated content that I've attached for you there, it tells you how you can be able to use grouping to be able to set your design. So you can control the visibility of a set of widgets and also group your visibility in a manner that you can toggle them together. To toggle means that you can be able to shift and move them without any issues. So assuming that now you are developing a system like Glovo or Jumia online on a mobile app, you see, you need maybe people to read or to have the name of the item that you are selling, and then ask them to click show more. So there is show more and show less. Even in the chats, when you are in Facebook or TikTok or where you always have to see all the details or few details. So you do what is called toggling. So when you are using a toggling button, then it enables you to hide some content and display them when you need them. So you can use groups to do that. Then we have examples of groups. We're talking about location, location details, and so on. So you need to use a constant referenced IDs to be able to locate that position. Then group up on code. Now, for you to implement that toggling aspect, for example, the one that you are seeing here, then for this toggle to work, you need to write this code on the function section. So you have to say override fun. This is now the function, that the function on click button, that when the person clicks view more or view less, this is what should do. That if the group is visible, then view is gone, and therefore you can set it to be visible. And then you can have a button at the bottom that is called hide the details. Else, if you have already seen the entire details, now you want to close it, for you now to click now that hide the more details, this is now what will be called, that if the group visibility view is gone, then what do you do? Click the button, set the text to show more details. So this one is when it is displaying, then you can hide. And then this one is when you have clicked hide more details, so that you can click show more details to be able to display. So that is what it does for toggling functions. Data binding. Let's look at data binding. For you to bind the data, we're talking about traversing the view hierarchy each time, so that when it is about the name, the age, or the location that you want it to be displayed, then it should be able to be defined well. Therefore, for you to do that, you use what is called find view by ID for you to be able to get that. That one is within here, because when you come to the main activity here, you are saying find the element by ID here, this line of code. You see here that I want to view a certain layout. So what layout is going to be viewed? So here the layout that is going to be viewed is called main. And this you have to identify it or display it as per the ID. So you need to get the ID name for that. So that's why we use the find view by ID. So this is what is called data binding. So you want to bind the data that you want to be displayed using the find view by ID function for you to display the activity main screen, layout screen, the one that now you have it here. Okay, this layout screen is now what will be displayed here when you open your app. Why? Because now this line here has set it to be available. That can you set this find view by ID so that it can be able to display for us the layout ID from the res folder, and then once it picks it, there is a variable here, so we display it with the system bars so that we are setting the insert to get this screen and then be able to make it fit on the window of our screen. So we are setting it to be compatible and for it to go and set the bars color, so that now when you set that, then we have to set the bindings, set the paddings, that when you are displaying this screen, it should be able to fit as per the screen left, padding top, padding right, and padding top bottom, so that it can fit correctly and fit the entire screen without leaving some spaces around. So that's what it does there. So because now we are working on the enabling the edge to edge, so that your screen can fit both sides. Hook on top iende kabisa at the top, then at the below also it should be able to go down at the end, so that your screen fits the entire screen that you have opened, whether it is. So what does it do when you are defining this one here using this enable edge to edge? It means that you are defining what is called responsiveness. Responsiveness should be met. Whatever screen that will be used to open that app, it should fit the entire area. So that is what it does. So that is data binding. So when you're doing that, that's what you need to do. And when you're doing data binding, that element that you want to bind must have an ID. That's why we always have to assign IDs to specific elements that we are creating. Whether you are creating a text field or what, you need to come here to the design section. You must always have an ID. You see this Android ID main. When you come to the main activity here, also you have some IDs here. So you have to define this one. We need to give it an ID, so that this one is text field ID. Here we have to say Android ID, and then be able to assign it an ID. So we can assign it an ID and say this is a sign up ID, so that when we create here another second element down here, we shall be able to know that what is the element here. So when you are assigning the top, then we can say top on which ID or below which ID. Okay, so every element must have an ID, because that is what you'll be able to use to define what is called uh, binding, data binding. So you can see that this text here is displaying for you something. Why? Because you have not created a string that is called sign up. So for you to create this string called sign up, then you can either just click here and then click Alt and enter. Then it's going to extract for you the screen and assign it on the strings. You can see it has picked the strings there, and then it's going to define it here. Now you can see here the text called sign up, and the text that needs to be displayed is sign up. And that is what you have in your design here, uh, called sign up, in the main activity here, sign up, because that is the text that you have. Now you can see there's no any other error showing. And now when you are now displaying it on the design here, you can now see the text is sign up. So this text, every text that you use needs to be defined in the strings section. So I hope you are getting that correctly. So then we have used data binding instead. So when you're using the data binding, then you need to define the data values or the name fields that you want to use. Like now here we are saying binding name to be a text. We are binding age to be a text. But if you want the age to be a number, then you have to define it. You can say binding age to be dot number. Then you define it as a number value. This is now data types assigning, which you understand it now in Java and the other object-oriented development. So I hope that as is very clear on your side. Uh, Now, how do you modify building the Gradle files? So for you to do that, you need to ensure that the build features accepts what is called the data binding to be true. So how do you do this? You need to ensure that you add this, you add this function to your binding section, the build gradles. So you have to come here to the build gradles here, build gradles under the main, this one, the module app here. And then you need to add that build gradle section here, be able to create that here, this area here. You need to be able to add that kind of functionality. So what does it mean is you can be able to tell from here what we did within the build gradle from that project. So when you have this area here, build gradle here, you see we are adding this, because immediately after the compile options you have the Kotlin options, and then you have to define this binding. So you need to bind this, you must define this so that it allows the binding features to work on that area. That is what we are defining here. So if you want that to work, then even if you don't want to use the data binding, then you can use the build features. But if you want to define your data binding here like this so that it works, then you must also add this one here so it to work with you. So mostly you have to come here, and then from this area here, this space here, you can as well as add this binding feature for you to, for it to work with you best. So this one, the build feature, and then you can be able to define that. And then also there is another additionals down here. I think that is not very important, because already the JVM targets, you have already defined it that within that area, and also the versions that you are using. So within that, you can be able to add this one feature that we are talking about. So you can come here and then be able to add that binding feature there, or you can be able to add it within or inside here. You can come here and then add it there. So once it is there, once you have added it, so that all these build uh, features can be able to be done through the building types release, so that all of them are built together in one space there, so that they are within. So this one started ended here. So for the Android here, you have to start it and then end it down here, so that all of them are built like that. So you can, as well as now this view binding, you can as well as now allow data binding by adding this also to be true. So you can just add that line down there, and then you can be able to do all the data binding to be true there. See here, can be able to do that, so that all of them. So because now you are doing data binding here already, and then you have the view binding. So this view binding will always do that work. So you don't need to define them separately. So you can just remove this one and then maintain the view binding, so that it can be able to allow all the views to be binded correctly and work with you. So you have to synchronize that, and that's why we said you must be connected to the internet. So you must synchronize the views to be able to allow that view binding. So if you are building that section, then you need to be able to take part of that. Need to take care of that. So for you to use that, you need to define that. Then adding layout tags. So layout tags are these ones. For example, the layout here, Android X, we get constraints and so on. So always you have to start with opening remarks here, and then you have to lock it. So how do you lock it? Just the way you are used to it in HTML, closing and opening tags. Then that's how you do it here. Although now on the other side, you are ending with these ones at the end here. And like this one, now you start with this and then end it like that. This one here, you started it here, then you have to end it here, just the way you did the other side. So that's how you do the adding of tags. Then replacing this, that set content view to R activity main with this. So when you say about val binding, then you want this one now not to read as a view, but you want it to be read as a binding data type. So when you're binding with data types, then you need, and also the same thing, in case you don't want to use views, what do? Come to this side here and then change this one from binding view to data binding. So you define here to be data binding, and then you are setting it to true. So once you do this, then you are now setting both the view and the data binding to be allowed to be used in your program. So whenever you use the data binding there, it will work. Whenever you use the view binding, it will work. All right. So for now, we can be able to comment that, so that we leave it like that. So we can ignore those changes and allow that code to work. So that's how we deal with views. So they are very important for you. So whenever you are using, you don't want to use the views here, then you can use the binding, and you have to define it by giving it a variable. So variable binding, then you say the activity main binding, and then you bind it with the data. And when you're using the data, then you have to call the utility value to be able to allow setting of the content view values to be seen. Then you have to call what binding, data binding do you want to assign it. So the data binding that I want us to assign is called username. And what is the name? Melissa. So for this one also you can do that. And then here you say that now binding, then you say sign up. and then equals to the message sign up, so that you don't define it, but still it can work with the set view bindings. Now, for you to define now a specific name or variable, you have now to give the name of the variable here. So you can give now the data, then end the data, give what is the data value that you want to be binded in your section. So you have to bind the name, call it name. And what is the data type of this name? It is a string, not a character, because characters, combination of more characters becomes now a string. But what if it was age? Then you would have said age, then data type to be text or to be number. Then you can define now that, and now here you just assign what you want directly. Then you can bind now here the name to be either John or who. So it will display the name that you have defined. So that is data binding and replacing the values. So how do you display lists with the recycler views? And when do you use lists? For example, in your email or in your chat, WhatsApp. WhatsApp displays all the chats that you have had. Why? Because it's displaying the lists. And when you are displaying the list, you are using a feature called recycler view. So that is the type of a view that you are using there, recycler view. Email, for it to display all the emails, whether it is their inbox, sent, or whatever, they are displaying them in the list. Or if you are having an online shop and you are displaying the items in your shopping cart area, then they are displaying list. So recycler view is a widget for displaying list of data, and it allows you to reuse item views to make scrolling more performant. It allows scrolling up, down, left, and right. So it can specify the list item layout for each item in the dataset, and also allows you to support animations and transitions. You can toggle even within a list or a recycler view. So for you to utilize the recycler view, you need to use what's called the recycler adapter, whereby you have the supplies data and the layouts that the recycler can be able to decide to display. For example, get item count, you can use on create view holder, and then you can have on bind view holder, so that all these activities can be able to take care of that. So these ones can support now the recycler view adapter to perform its work. So the functions are those three. The get item count, so that you can get what is the number of these items that you have displayed. So mostly when you have displayed the list down there and you want to use what is called the filter item, the filter item will be able to give the count. You can be able to filter the items based on the number that you want. For example, you are displaying the number of students in attendance list. Maybe the students are 100. So you can use both the filter and the pagination to be able to page how many pages should be displayed. For example, even here in this display here, you see we can be able to see how many number of students. So if I want to check that, I can click the view, then I can be able to, it can be able to use the recycler view to tell me how many students are there logged in. Okay, so it can tell. So we use that recycler view adapter to be able to do that. What if the students are so many, then I want to reduce the number or display the number of views that are available? Then you can also be able to tell how many are there. So you can get the count, like there are 20, are they 21, are they 50, are they 60? Then view holder, it can also be able to show what is the view holder and then all that. So those are the key things that it can be able to tell. So view recycling in a recycler view. If the item is scrolled off screen and it isn't destroyed, then item is put in a pool to be recycled. So if you recycled down and the content on the other side has disappeared, then still you can still go upwards and then you can still get it. So on bind view, holder binds the view with the new values and then the view gets reinserted into the list. So that's when you can have, maybe you have the data of Chicago, Mountain, and so on, and you are displaying them. So how do you implement this? Add the recycler view to your layout. So for you to add a recycler view, you have to use the Android X recycler view widget, and then you define it to be a recycler view. And then for you to do that, you have to define it using the ID RV for recycle view. And then you can use the layout, the orientation here to be scrollable bar. Then you can use the scroll bars. Then how do you want them to scroll? If you want to scroll from left to right, then you can define here scroll bars. Then you define here to be horizontal. But if you are scrolling from top to down, then you have to say scroll bars, then vertical, and then it can be able to give you. But remember, this is the layout here that you have defined. Assign it the ID and then define how you want it to be scrolled. Then you can create a list of items that now you want them to be scrolled. So here we use what is called the frame layout, and then you can define the text view and then assign it. So the text view here that we have assigned that, and then you can be able to give now the text, the values that you want here. Now, how do you actualize the functionalities for the adapter view so that you can assign them to the holder and all that? So we use the class myAdapter, give the data, and then you are saying that the list is in the integer format. Then use your recycler view adapter to be able to assign the holder section so that it can be able to hold those texts correctly. And then from there now you can be able to define that class that you have defined here, called the view adapter here, then assign it the rows and the columns. So within the rows, you have asked it to be able to view the rows. Then you are using that to, based on the holder section of that. That is the container that you have the content being held. Then you define the text views that you want to be assigned to. So you find the view by ID and then you assign what view did you create. The view that you created, you had given it the name called the number, and that is what you defined here. So you gave the layout here, and the item that you had given was the number. So it is able to pick that. Then now you can now have a function to now give the functionality to this view so that you can be able to scroll them down and up. So what do? You on create the view holder and then you define the parent. The parent to be a view group, have the view type to be integers, and then assign it the holder. And within that, define the layout that you want it to do. So the layout influencer will have to take all the content from the parent context. That is from the top downwards. Then display the views. And then you return the holder back. Then you can have the second function to actualize the holder. So for the holder now, you have to hold the text that you are displaying in the position where you want it to be. So you do the holder by assigning the text and then define the position to assign it. Either it is at the center, left, or right. And then you can have another function to define the number of the text within a row. Remember here you have defined the rows and the columns. So within a row, how many do you want them to be displayed? Do you want 20 count first? Do you want 30? Do you want 100? Do you want 50? So you use the get item count function to be able to define that. And that has displayed now the three functionalities that we had said that a recycler view adapter can give you. The get item count, on create view holder, and then the on bind view holder functions. So that is how you can be able to implement that in the actions functions in the main section. Then in your main activity area, you have to set the recycler view on this section. So how do you actualize this on your main activity text? So on your main activity text, remember, you need now to continue to add this, that the function, you have to create a function on create save instance bundle, which is always created automatically, which is here. That section is always here automatically when you go to the main activity. So this one can allow me to close this, some of these pages first. So this is the designer, but we need to get the activity for the main. So in the main activity here, we are saying that these ones are always defined here, whereby you have to define the main activity and assign it the app compact activity. Then you must have the on create state, which now binds your functions with a header, and then you have to start with the on create. Then you now define now the functionalities here. Now for this case, now we are defining the recycler adapter functionalities. For you to do that now, that's why I'm saying that you should do this. So the only things that you add are this one here, so that they can be able to display all the elements that you want. So we are displaying 100 per page. That is the range. So if you have a lot of data from the database, it will be able to display 100. Then it shows you there the next page for you to move, because that is the count number that you have defined here, has been defined in this area here by the data size. So we are displaying 100 there first. If you want them to display per page 50, then you reduce here to 50. So that is the end of that layout section. So you can easily use that to be able to create your recycler, or the recycler view, and also create several views that you want to use. Now that makes the end of the layouts. Now let's look at the next topic, which is app navigation. App navigation. So for you to have the app navigation, you need also to know how is your app, how do people move within your app? How do they moving? Like what is the, like where is your menu? Where is your back button? Where is your home button? Then number two is, how do you shift from login to register? How do you shift from register to login? From login to main page? From main page to other activities that are within the app? So we are talking about multiple activities and intents. The app bar, navigation, drawers, and menus. You remember I told you about the navigation drawers. The fragments, the navigation in an app, and more. So that's what we are going to look at. So multiple activities and intents are the ones that we need to look at. Sometimes the app functionalities may be separated into separate screens, so that your app is not only concentrated on one screen. You can have several screens, which are called activities. So a single screen on your device is what is called an activity. So a view details of a single item, for example, a product or a shop app, creates new items, for example, new emails. Maybe you are composing new apps, or you are composing old apps, and so on. So showing the settings for an app. Maybe you want to show the settings for your WhatsApp. Then you go to settings. Then you go to now a certain functionalities that you have in your app. Like if you go for like setting of your phone, and then you go to settings page. So all that gives you what are called multiple screens that exist. If you go maybe for example for your app, Maybe, for example, your WhatsApp, and then you go to the three dots, you click them, then you'll have several things there: new group, new broadcast, linked devices, start, read all, or settings. When you click settings, then you'll have things like account, privacy, avatar, lists, chats, notifications, messages, or storage and data, and then accessibility and app language. So all this is, when you want to show this, then you need to show multiple screens. So every section there, when you click, it shows you something. So those are screens. So what are intents? You have seen in most of the occasions, we are creating and defining some of the functionalities using intents functions. For instance, I bring you back to this code, and I take you uh, to the main function here, like the main activity, and assume that we want to define some intent functions here. Here, let's say that you are defining the connectivity with what is called the Firebase. So we are giving the Firebase auth to link and get the instances from the Firebase, and then binding it using the binding data. And we are binding this to a text view on click listener, so that when the person clicks sign up, it should be able to open or trigger the connectivity to the Firebase to be able now to open and allow the person to register. And we are assigning it to the intents. These intents, what are the intents? So that you understand well what are intents. And in most of the occasions here where you have functionalities set, you must to set the intents. So what are these intents? Is what you need to get. So intents are requests on an action from another app component, such as another activity. For example, now you have the Firebase connected to your app. Firebase is your database. It's another app. Yet you are developing through the Android space, Android Studio app. So for you to have that connectivity to happen, then the request that you are making for an action is what is called an intent. So an intent usually has two primary pieces of information. One of them is the action to be performed. For example, the action view, action edit action, or action main. Or number two, the data to operate on. For example, the person's recording in the contacts databases. Like now for the sign up, you are connecting to the Firebase in order to save your data or to create an account. So that is an action through the action listener. So that happens on the data to operate on. And number two, on the page or the screen to be opened in terms of the action listener. For example, you are creating a button, and then you are saying on create listener that I want, when I click the sign up button, it should be able to open the sign up page and do it. Then common use to specify the request to transition to another activity. So in case that now you are saying forgot password, or I have not signed up and I want to sign up, and I'm in the sign in page, and I want to open the sign up page so that I can register my data. So when you click sign up page inside the sign in, then you are triggering that area to open, or that button to open that other new activity. So you need to use the intent. We have two types of intents: explicit intent and implicit intent. So what do they do? When you're talking about explicit intent, then you want to fulfill a request using a specific component. You want to navigate internally. You are doing things within that app, within that screen, not outside that screen. So you're navigating internally to an activity in your app, within your app. You are navigating to a specific third-party app or another app that you have written. So navigating between activities in your app. So you use the function view note details, and then you have defined a variable called the intent, and then you say intent, open the note detail activity that you have created. Then within that, you want to put extra notes to it through the note ID. Then you can start an activity and give it an intent to be able to start the action, the action. So for you to navigate to a specific external app, then you can use an open external app. For example, you are clicking with Firebase so that it can open that Firebase, or you are opening another web app to be able to access it within that system. So you say open external app, and then you give the URL where you want it to be opened. And then you can be able to tell it to resolve the activity, package the manager, if it is possible. If it doesn't open that, then it should be able to start the app. So we are using here the logical operator, not equal to null. Then if it is not equal to null, that means that it has found the page that it was looking for, then it should start the intent. What if it doesn't find? Then it should be able to return back to home page. So that is the explicit intent, because I've told you there are two types of intents, implicit and explicit. For the explicit, you are using specific components to talk about navigating within the app. What about implicit? It provides generic actions to the app can perform. Number one, resolving using mapping of data type and action to known components. And it also allows any app that matches the criteria to handle the requests. So that's what happens in the implicit intent. So in an examination question, if asked to distinguish between implicit and explicit intent, you should be able to tell that. And I know you got that kind of a question in your CAT. Um, for example, you have a function to send an email. For you to send the email, you have an intent action to send the email. So what type of text are you sending? Is it a text? Is it a document in terms of the attachment? So we are sending a text plain through the email without attachments. So you put extra intent, then you open the email address, and then put extra intent to open the body where you are entering the text. So the text will be, how are you? Then you can now be able now to check if the activity is not equal to null for the external activity, then you can connect it. So that is how you can be able to write that to modify and apply that. Now, the second part of this, we want to look at now app bar, navigation drawer, and menus. What is the app bar? You realize within our application here, when we were defining it, and we went to the themes. Let's say we go to the themes. In the theme here, we define what's called the navigation drawer up here. And we are saying up here, we are saying that we want the theme to use the material day night, because sometimes you have to change day and night. Now we are saying that during the day and night, it should show the what is called the, let me just undo that so that we can have this. So we are saying no action bar, no action bar. Why? Because if we give the action bar to be present, what we expect here the app to do is to change the colors based on its own color defined themes. So if you say here no action bar to be the action bar to be present, then even if you define the theme color here on the color of your theme that you want it to display, then it will not be able to display. For example, you are opening WhatsApp chat or WhatsApp app. What happens on top there? It can show the color to be white or black. If you open, for example, Facebook, it changes the color on top there to be white. If you open, for example, another app called Gmail, then it will be able to show the background color of that Gmail on top there. If you show, for example, YouTube, then it has to change the color. So this defines the color on top of the device so that it can be able to give you the aesthetic color of what has been defined. There are some which you open and then it will be able to change to blue, to green, to what. So all that needs to be. So this is what is called the app bar. The app bar. How do you want the app bar to be displayed? Now, how do we implement all of that? Is now what we are going to look at. Navigation drawer, we say that when you have an app that shifts from one side to the other, like now you have the Telegram. When you click the user menu and then you see it having the settings section and the main section, then that is the navigation drawer. And then the menus, you can add the menus now to define. For example, now in your WhatsApp app, when you look at it and then you have, when you click the three dots and then it is able to open for you the menus like read all, start, linked devices, new broadcast, new group, settings. So those are menus. So that is what you need to know about that. This is the example that we are talking about, the app bar. When you open the app, it shows there with these three menus here, so that you can click the three and then it can be able to toggle and open for you the navigation bar. And then below here, you have what is called either a plus text, a plus button, which you can click, then you can open. For example, if it is Gmail, you always see here a tick, something like a pen. That means that click here to compose a message. So all this is what we call the app bar. So on the app bar, you have, it shows all the time and whatever. Then on top there, you have now the app bar, which shows the name of your app. So if you have tested your app, for instance, now we had the app here and we wanted to run that. So let's say we run that app. It will be able to show us the app bar on top. So let us wait a bit for it to open. So it's loading. Let me resume the. So I think the app has been launched. The device is not to restart. So I can relaunch that. We can rerun that, but we can be able to see here. That the app, that is it. So it's launching. So that is it. So up there, for us to give now the name of the app to appear on top here. See, like now we have what's called a flashing landing page that has the icon of the app. So for you to add those app bar and so on, then that is what you can be able to do now with what we have here. So let me first of all finish installing that, and then we shall be able to see it operating. So that is what it's displaying. So right now it has a blank page with no text for the main. Because if we come here to main activity and we look at what is available here, it's only a text that is supposed to display there. So once it is installed now, you can see that. So the UI UX has, so I'll wait for it. So that's what causes the crash. Need to be able to note that. So so the app's UI UX is not displaying due to some few things here. What if you change this one to be somewhere there and so on? So we can be able to fix that based on what we have uh, with time, and also fix the crashing. So let's first of all look at how to implement that. So for us to implement the app, this is the navigation drawer that I was talking about on your left. Shifting to this other side, you can have several things, like for example your profile. Even if you open the bank account, the bank apps, how they look like, that is how things are. So you can have your navigation area. Then we have this, if you want to define that. Then we have the menus. So if you want to create a menu, then you have to define the menu items in the XML menu resources located in the res menu folder. So you have to come to your app here, then go to res, and then here you can now create the menu folders here. You might not be having it, but you can be able to create it either here in the theme, or you can be able to create your own menu folder here. So we can just come here to res, and then we can create here a menu. So we can create here a folder or a directory or a folder here. So we can say maybe it is an asset folder or res folder or a directory that you want it to have. So if we create here a res folder, or that means that the res folder is missing. But here what you can be able to do is a resource bundle can also be able to serve you best. But creating what is called just a directory here is very important. So you can just say here, this is a menus, and then you can be able to save it. Directories inside here, can create here directory here, 100 resource directory, can create it like that. And then down here you can say menus, a menu. Then we maintain these other things the way they are. So that menu, we have created it and it's called menu. So we give it a menu. So this one will be a main. And then we can be able to say okay. So once you do that, now you have here a menu called menus. Now inside here, we can now create files that we can be able to define our menu resources. So we have res, we have created a folder called menu. Then inside there, we can now be able to create these texts inside that. So we can create a file inside and then be able to give the items that we want them to be displayed. Okay. So inside here, we can now be able to create a resource, a menu resource file here, and then call it menus. Menus. I want it to be called menus, or just a menu. Inside which folder, I'll take it to be a menu there, then be able to click that. So once I have this, you see now it gets into menus. And I want this menu now to be used within that. So do we use the cast button? Do we use the menu item like this? So you can be able to use, is it a search menu or just menu like this? So you can be able to say, let it be a menu like that as the palettes. So when we come to the coding here, you can see that it has defined certain issues here. So it has told you what is the version and the menu that you want to create and so on. So we need now to be able to add or to define what this menu has. So the menu, we are going to give the menu what are called the items. All the items must come inside the menu. So for the items, we are going to add the items called action settings, and we can make them an order category for 100, and then we can be able to tell what to show within that. So do we want it to showing in the action? Yes or not. So this is what we can be able to create within that. So because you have the schema being defined and all this, and also the version, so that one is not the matter or the issue. So already it has defined for you all this. So what you need just to do here is now to define the items that you want that to be able to display for us on top there. So these items need to be well defined in that area. So here we need to give that, do we have action settings, the string. So you can be able to say alt and enter, and then say here that override resources action settings. You can be able to give these within the strings action settings. Do we have these strings as small s? Then no. We have maybe capital string, and then we can be able to give something there. We can define these strings within our area of strings. Let's go to values inside strings, and we are going to define the action settings. So here we can say the string here, and what is the name of the string, that, and then we can be able to give the name uh, up there. You can say here the name here is settings, so that it can be able to accept that. So here is string. So like that. So we can import this. So this is what is missing. So we can just import this app to define the auto functionality there. And then this one is fixed. So that is what you need to be able to add that in your app. And then your menu section will have been defined very well. So that's what you can be able to do in that, for you to have your menu. So let's look at it now. More menu options that you can be able now to add. We can be able now to add some groupings, that now we want now to add some actions with that. Now for it now to have all these now functionalities done, because options menu examples, we can say that you want the action to be ID'd to be this, and then you can have or define the actions here that you want them to be done, give the ID, and then we can be able to give now all this, because we want it to start with intents and so on, show some settings on top there and so on. So this is now the actionable areas, but this is what you can be able to define, give the items, give the action intent to be available on top and so on, which are available within. So in case now you want now this one, for example, now for it to have first of all the items and then define the items later, so we can be able to have them within our app here. So we can have first of all have our items here, defining our items, what we want it to do. The action intent has not been defined, so we can be able to define this in the string section. And then says here create a string value with that, so you can be able to give it. So what is the resource value? We can give it that text. Then from there, then we can now have this well defined as they are appearing here. And now you are now giving the action state for it to be able to appear there. And then after that, we need to be able to define uh, those actions that we want to be displayed there, the gallery, the word, and so on. So all these now needs now to be defined. We can be able now to add the menus, and within the items, we can be able to define them like that. We can group them together inside there, and then be able to state them within our own space here. So what we can be able to do here is inside there, we can be able to define this and give that group there. So we need to have some drawable, the camera icon, we have the icon gallery, and the icon, what is called a slideshow. So within my space here, I have all those ones defined within the drawables. So if I come to the drawables, I can be able to get uh, those menus in terms of the icons that show uh, the drawables, the cameras, the what. So you can be able to define them here, just in the action here. In case you want this drawable called gallery to be appearing here, you can just come here to the drawable section and then right click, go to the assets, vector assets, or image assets. So you can click here, image assets, and then you can search for what you want. Let's say we want to put here some images. Let's go to that activity. So I want assets. Let's go to vector assets, and then we can click this clip art. Go to vector assets, then you can come here, click this clip art, then it will open this area here for you to search. So in case I put gallery, or I call here gallery for images, then it will come, this is an image, then I can be able to put that, and then that is the name. So I can give it the name as icon menu gallery to serve as the gallery. So I can say here local. If I say that I want to collect from here, then I can use my icon. You can go online, like for example, let's go just to an online platform here, and then search for icons. We can say Android icons, Android icons. And you can come here from the favicon. You can be able to search for what you want. For example, now I'm looking for gallery, like that. So these are the images. So if I want this or this one to showcase there, you click it, and then you can download it as either PNG or SFG. So you can do that. So you can see that it's asking for, that's just a free download. You can free download it. So it is there, downloaded. If I want it to be in SFG, still you can do that, and you see it requires some amount to be paid. So this one is enough for me. So you can be able to name this. So I can rename it as icon that. Then I can carry this. I can copy it and then come to my app under drawable section. Even if this clip art is there, we can give it what we had given it. What was the name? I can come back here and then go to the menu, drawables, menus. So about the menus, I'd given it a name there, icon. Let me just pick it from the browser area. This one here, this name. I just come here. Let's give this one to be like that, to serve like that one. Then I say next. So I want it to be in that area. Finish. So you see, once you do that, this one here has gone. But still, we can be able to take that within the drawable, and I want it to use my image style. My image style. So what do? I can come here, pick this image that I've downloaded, come here to drawables, right click, and then paste it there, and then click this. So what it will happen is that now I'll come here and then pick that as what I want to be displayed there. So that can just come here and just say at drawable. Then it displays for me all that is available, and then I can pick it. So right now you see now my icon is now well picked and it's here attached. So if it is about the menu called gallery and so on, you can as well as now define all these names within the string section. So this is menu home, menu gallery, and menu slideshow. We can come to the strings here and then define all of them. So you can come here, string name, and then one of them is menu gallery, and then we do here, we say menu gallery as the text. We can be able to say here string and the name. We can give it what is called menu home and say here menu home. So I can give this one the text to be home and this one here to be gallery, just gallery. And then we have slideshow. Assume that you want to give that string and it's called menu slideshow. Then here is slideshow. That is the text that you want it to be displayed. So this is what we have defined as per what we have created here under the menu. So you can see all those errors have disappeared. So the next thing here is to add icon called camera. So this one still you can be able to do that. Just come here to the drawables, then search for it, look for an asset, vector asset here. Click here, search for camera. Cameras will come, so you can pick what you want. Then I can be able to call it icon camera. So you can change the color. If you want the color to be red, you can give it a different color of that camera. If you want it to be blue, you can change it to what you want. So you can give it like that. So you can see that one is gone. Then we have the next one called slideshow. So you can come here, go to vector assets, and then click here, search for slideshow. Slideshow is here. So you can click here, and you want it to be, maybe for this time I want it to be yellow or red, be like that. That is okay. What is the size or opacity? Then you can be able to change that. The size here you can change. So what is the name? Is that one. Then we can be able to say next and then finish. So all that is done in that. Then we have the title here, which has not been defined in our intent there. So we can come back to the strings and define that. Have the string and then say it is that, and here you say it is intent. Oh, sorry, can be able to say here intent. Yes, so like that, or start intent. Can give that maybe start intent. So that one has a name, gallery, and then you have settings, you have home. So all that has been defined and they have been well been designed here. So this one, we have given this one to be in a group, while this other one is separated on the other side. We have that. So that's what we have in that area. So you can have option menu examples that you have there. Start intent will give that one, then item text to be displayed there. Then you will now come to the inflate options menu. Now this one, now you will have now to do it now in the home page. In the home page now you'll have to create a class called on create, and then be able to add that to be able to display all that all this. Then we have handle menu options. For you now to handle now the menu options, so that when you select a menu, what should happen is now what this code will do, because now it has now to enable you with that when you pick an item, then it has to, if it is searching, then it should be able to search for you pizza and then open that activity, and then it should be able to show you a toast message that maybe you have displayed pizza or whatever. So these are now actions that now you can be able to add on the actionable area to be able to display now your menus, because you have created the menus. Then you need now to actionize these menus in your app, especially in the Android manifest section and in the main activity areas, so that now they can be able to work. So that is the functionalities that now you can be able to add now to implement that. So all the things are here. So you just need just to open the main menu and then be able to inflate it and be able to show it. Very powerful. Then this is now, if you have selected a menu, how is it supposed to behave? That's what is there. Fragments. Now for you to use fragmentations, we are talking about now the selected an item starts activity where. So activities contains what are called fragments. Fragment A, fragment B, fragment 3, and so on. So a fragment is just a represented behavior or a portion of a UI in an activity. So it must be hosted in an activity, and a fragment is tied always to a host activity life cycles and can be added or removed at a runtime. So fragments are very, very important, and you need them. So you can use the Android X versions, that as the fragment class. So you normally call them as the fragments.app, and then you give the fragment name. Uh, so the navigation within an app can be done. How can this be done? Because you want to move from login to sign up, then to home page. So collection of libraries and tooling, including an integrated editors for creating this can be done. So assuming that one activity per graph is available, then how do you shift from consisting of three major parts: the navigation graph, the navigation host, and the controller. So the controller controls the movements. The host is now the mother or the container that contains everything, and the graph will now define how you can move from one area to another. So for you to do that, you need first of all to add some of the dependencies. And when do you add, where do you add these dependencies? For you to work with the navigations, they cannot be able to work alone. You must add the dependencies. And these dependencies, like implementing the navigation drawer versions, these dependencies needs to be defined. Where? It is in the build Grados. So you have to come to your application area and then go to the build Grados section. Come here to the build module app here, and then come here in the implementation here, and then add these dependencies. These are the dependencies. So you are going to add all these dependencies here, like implement this and implement this for them to work. If you don't add this, then they will not be able to work. So you have to add for the fragments and add for the navigations for it to work. And now, because we had enabled app here to utilize what is called Google, you see it is searching for the libraries from Google as the plugins, then you need to sync for it now to pick it. Now we have to synchronize so that it can be able to download the navigations and the fragment capabilities for it now to have, so that when you now start creating them within the menu to add the navigation drawers and the fragments, they can easily work because you have added them. So it says here navigation versions. So here we can be able just to remove the navigation versions here, because here you need to define it. Which navigation are you using? Which version? So that's what you can be able to define here. So for now, we can be able just to leave this area here untouched, because we need the versions to be either 51, or you want navigation, which version. So you can be able to give the navigation version that you want it to work with. So for now, we can be able to, I can be able to do this because I have not defined the version to be used, but you can define yourself now based on the navigation that you want the navigation drawer. Although even also in the palette areas, when you drag the navigation drawer, it can be able to tell you which so which one to be picked. So in case of anything, it will be able now to show. But I have synchronized that back to normal so that our system can be able to work. So that you have to define the navigation type that you want the system to work with. Like here, I can see I've not used any navigation drawer, but in case you want to use it, then you will need to define them very well and to specify them. So that is what you can be able to do when you are dealing with the navigation drawers to be able to add on your app. So let's proceed as I am almost finishing up. So for you to use the navigation, let's say you have the navigation host. So you have to define the navigation, the fragment that you want to use. So the fragment you have to define it, give the fragment name and the name, the ID, the layout, and also whether you want it to be default or not default. And for that, then you'll have to give the navigation name. So what name of the navigation do you want to give it? Then you can also be able to define it. Then we come here. Then once you have defined them, and for you to have that, you will have to create another navigation folder here called navigation in the res folder. So it's a directory. So we can be able to do that and create a navigation drawer here. So you'll just come to the res folder, do that, come here, say Android resource directory or a resource file. So if it's a directory, we can do this. And then here, we can be able to click here to be navigation. And then you can come here and pick navigation. And then we can be able to click that. So once we have the navigation here, now we can now create a resource file here, navigation resource file, and call it and call it navigation host or anything that now you want it to be defined at. So we can give it a name that you want it to be known. Like here we have the game fragment or whatever name that you want it to have. You can give it a name or fragment. We can give it fragment or anything here because I can see here the name that we are giving is a navigation graph name. So we can give this one as the name of the resource. So we come here and then give this, and then here we select it as a main. So here the type is now the navigation. Then we can be able to click that. And once we have that resource created, we can now be able now to use it to define the all the fragments. Now this is now the code that now you can be able to put it inside there within that fragmentation. So you can create that and then add it there, and that will be within uh, your code space there. So let me just go to the code here. So this one is taking time to build. Let's allow it to complete. Just a little. Once it is done, we shall be able to update it. Now, within the fragments needs to control how your destinations or how the listings will be done and optionally being arranged within your area. How do you access your home page and so on? So that is it. So for you to utilize now these fragments, you need to use an on create view for it to inflate your fragment definitions for it to work. So you have to define within your main activity area, you have to define this. Have a functions on create view so that it can use the in Flutter to define your layout in Flutter and the container and the groups that you have defined within the fragments. And then you are going to set the instance state to be able to view all the fragments that you have created. And then you can return the name of your fragment that you have created. And if it is not, then it will be able to return a false. So that is what you'll be able to do, and then it will be able to run and open your fragments sections. So specifying the fragment destinations, you need to define it by using the action source fragment. Then you can define here the source, and then you can give the destination folder where your fragments are defined. So for example here, now that you have all your fragments defined here and the layout and the name of the fragment that you have is called fragment welcome, then you can give it the action and then the specific area's destination where it is. Then you can give it the name. What is the destination of it? You need it to be in detailed fragment area. And then you can end your fragments. Then we have what is called the navigation controllers, which we use the nav controller management UI to be able to define how we can be able to manage or move or navigate from one end to another. So what does it do? One, it specifies the destination part, only the name of your action. And number two, it will have to define the path that your navigation controller is taking place. So we can use this, the function on create, then use the navigation controller variable to define where you want it to. So you can identify the navigation, your navigation host where you define it and created it to, and then point out to the destination which you had defined, and then it can be able to show it. So, so more information about that, we can be able now to check on the navigation behavior. That is now passing the data between the destinations and finding the target, ensuring the arguments have valid types. Let your provider default values be defined. Generate the class to set the arguments for every named action. And then generate the target destinations where you can be able to provide access to the destination arguments that you want. For you to do that, you need to make the change. You have to set up the safe arguments where in your build Gradle section. So you need to check whether your build script can accept the repositories to be done within the Google so that it can call all the Google functions. And in the dependencies area, you need to add the path for your navigations and give here the version of your plugin that is defining that. So for example, here you can apply. Also in the building a Gradles, you need to go to the apply plugin section and then be able to add this to save the arguments with Kotlin for it to work, or else you will always have the errors. And all those things can be done within the build Gradle sections, which I have said, uh, here. You need to come to the build Gradle section here. This is where you can be able to add those dependencies, those issues. You can add them here. Define, add the Google one, and then add those other dependencies down here. So that they can be able to work so well. So this is where you can be able to define those your IDs and so on. You can define it here, your navigation. Once you do that, then you can now be able now to link it up. So I think because of time, I want also to move faster because I have another session. Uh, Destination arguments, you can be able to define them like that. And I think I've shown you how to do that. So you can define them for fragments. That's how you can be able to do that. So when you are defining them, you need to support the arguments. Are they only floats, longs, booleans, strings, arrays, and so on? So all these can be defined in that area. So you can also be able to use navigation with actions. So if you want to define them, you have to define with the uh, give them the binding numbers, the values, access them with the views and the destinations. Then within that, in case you are using multiple fragments, then you need to define them and give them or assign them some variables that are needed. And then they can be able to work. Navigation UI. How do you get the menus revisited, and how do you ensure that the menus have been picked? So here you have to use the action item selector. Then you can select the menu item that you define. Either it's true or false. That's why you have to use the boolean. And then here now you have to define your controller to find all this and what navigation was there, what menu was there. The menu was using the navigation host fragment that we had created, and you have defined the functionalities within this host navigation fragment areas. And then you set them to be outside, to be accessible here. So you return the item, return the location and the controller, and then since the controller has been defined, you can now give the selected items for it to pick. Drawer layout for navigation drawer. So if you, in case you want to use it as a drawable layout section, then you can be able to define them like this and they'd be able to work correctly. So you need to finish setting up the navigation drawer. You have to use the variable called app bar configuration and then define the app bar configuration, give the navigation controller the graph and the drawer for it to be able to showcase. Then you can be able to define them, access them through the view, and then give the controller to be able to pick it. So I think that one makes the end of that illustration, because this rest is just that. So in the next session, we shall be able to discuss how do we implement some other additional issues. And those additional issues are will be involving things like how are we implementing the activities, fragments, the app architecture, and the app architecture in terms of the UI layer and the persistence of that functionalities there in terms of the persistence. Then we see how can we be able to actualize the recycle view so that it can be able to function within your app, and then connect it with the internet, and then look at how can you be able to do the repositories and the last design, and then your app will be done. So I think in the next section we shall be able to cover all these three, and then the last lecture we shall be able to capture these two, or the two or three there, and then we can be able to end that. So I want to read the attendance so that we can be able to end that session there. But app development is very, very, very important. You guys, you need to focus much on that area, be the gurus on that area, and be able to uh, do that. So let me log into the portal. I read the attendance, and then I'll be able to end. Can do that to resume. Uh, I like the following people. So those who have not attended class know what is there. Um, Ayanda Njeri Kimani, Brian Ombachi, Chinamula Pazu,
Present.
Annette Wanjiru,
Present.
Esther Nyamanga, Volt Nyatundo,
Present.
Faith Chepto, Alan Ochwea,
Present.
Johnson Benson,
Present.
Justin Minor,
Present.
Abigail Jebet, Yuna Jumba,
Present.
Ran Gatitu,
Present.
Wallace,
Present.
David Machari,
Present.
Maxwell Maenge,
Present.
Titus Kiplagat, Samuel Ndegwa,
Present.
Quinto Otieno, Beyonce Nyakara, Brandon Mbogo,
Present.
Jeremy,
Present.
Kate,
Present.
Nora,
Present.
Angelo. Okay, so the class is dismissed. Thank you, and have I hope you are able to link those two, the Firebase and the login and sign up, and it's working correctly. Is that true? If not, then
Yes.
why haven't you finished? It's working, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And that is now you see now once you have linked your app with the database, you can now build any other platform because now your database is well connected. So your work is now just to work on now the activities and now implement them wherever you want. Whether you want to add more functionalities inside that, you can do that. But that is now how you have linked your backend and the front end, and it's able to work. Now, right now, you only need just to call the Firebase auth to every activity that now you are now creating, or the main classes that you are now working on, and you can now do whatever you want. Whether you want to build the entire platform, it is now working directly with your database. There is no any other problem that you have. So the same, you can now test linking it with the exam so that you can be able to access your MySQL locally. But I see the best way to go is what you have done, linking with Firebase, because Firebase is a cloud-based uh, database. So you can work with your app wherever you are. You only need to connect to the internet and it is functioning. So that is the best thing to do. Those who have not managed, please try your best also to do something within. If you follow it very well, then you learn so much and you can be able to complete any task that you have. Uh, and then number two is your projects. When is your examination starting? I think Wallace had already said, when are we presenting our project? Wallace,
Yes.
you will remind me that day so that we don't teach. We only focus on that project presentation so that I can be able to award marks for Cat 2. You did Cat 1 as theory, then Cat 2 was that practical because I normally give project and the theory work so that your theory is Cat 1, you are finished. Now, Cat 2 is now your project. So your project, you must also do the presentation so that I can award the marks. I'll send the link for submissions of your complete project. So you'll use the tool the way it is to upload your work, because from there is when I'll be able to mark it. So you'll have the marks for presentation and also the marks for submissions. so that I can mark the submitted work, add the marks for presentation. Then you'll have I'll convert it back to 15, so that your total marks for all that for the project is out of 15. Your complete marks for the theory work out of 30, I'll convert it back to 15, so that now 15 plus 15 can add your 30 marks complete. Then your exam will be out of 70, and then we can be able to do the general marks on that. Are we together up to there? Having no any
Yes.
other matter, we can be able now to end our session today. And I give thanks to you. In the morning session, I know that I had told you that the summary of what you are doing, I had already covered. So the only thing that you are now just doing is just to implement how do you design these components. And already you have used different tools. You have used the desktop publisher tool, which is the publisher within your own computer. And also I made you to be able to learn how to use the AI based tool, that is the canvas, to be able to design your tools. And once you master that, the only thing that you need to do is now to add your mastering, because what you are clicking are tools. So whatever tool you are clicking, examination questions will be on application basis. For example, I tell you that you've been selected as the chief marketing team at Safaricom, and you are supposed to market a certain product. Can you explain how you can be able to implement this? You see, this is an application thing. That how have you worked? Which tool have you used? Which branding space have you designed that? What specific pellets did you use? Did you use color pellets? Which colors were you defining? Did you use margins? How did you define them? What elements were you using? Height? What were you defining? The frames? Were you defining the size of the area that that you are developing? If you are exporting it, did you export it as PDF, as PNG, as JPG? Those are now extension formats for that. So once you have mastered the practical part of it, you can answer any question that you have. But still, if you need other resources, I can still extend to add for you. But that one is purely for practical aspects, so that you can be able to execute that function. So I think we can end there. Have a blessed time. We meet next week. Goodbye.